The alien ship floated silently through space, its silver hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside the main conference room, 12 different alien species sat around a massive circular table. Their strange forms cast odd shadows on the metallic walls as they discussed the latest news from across the galaxy. Ambassador Vexthul stood at the head of the table. His green scales caught the light as he moved, and his yellow eyes scanned the faces of his fellow delegates. He was tall and thin, with long arms that ended in clawed hands. When he spoke, his voice had a hissing quality that made other aliens lean forward to listen. "Friends and colleagues," Vexthul began, "today we discuss the most entertaining discovery in recent memory. The primitive world in Sector 7G continues to provide us with endless amusement." A ripple of laughter moved around the table. The small, blue-skinned Corvan delegate rubbed his hands together with glee. The tall, gray Andromedan representatives nodded their large heads in agreement. Even the serious warrior race from the outer rim cracked what might have been smiles on their fierce faces. "Earth," Vexthul continued, "has surpassed all our expectations for comedy. These humans fight over everything. They argue about land, about ideas, about who can say what to whom. They even fight about the weather and what food to eat." The delegates burst into fresh laughter. One alien, shaped like a floating jellyfish, pulsed bright colors in what was clearly amusement. Another, covered in fur and resembling a giant cat, made purring sounds of delight. "But the best part," Vexthul said, raising one clawed hand for silence, "is how seriously they take themselves. They think they are the center of the universe. They believe they are special, unique, important. Meanwhile, we have been watching them like a comedy show for 50 of their years." Far away from this meeting, on a blue planet orbiting a yellow star, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his office at the Earth Defense Force headquarters. The building was new, built after humanity had finally united under one military command. Outside his window, he could see ships landing and taking off from the busy spaceport. Jake was a tall man with brown hair and steady blue eyes. He had served in 3 different Earth militaries before the unification, and his uniform showed ribbons from conflicts on every continent. Now, at age 45, he commanded humanity's first real space defense force. His assistant knocked on the door. "Sir, we have a priority message. It came from space." Jake looked up from his reports. "What do you mean from space?" "A probe, sir. It appeared near Mars about an hour ago. It's been broadcasting a message in perfect English. The science teams are going crazy trying to figure out how it learned our language." Jake felt his heart speed up. Humanity had been searching for signs of alien life for decades. Radio telescopes had listened to the stars. Space missions had explored every planet and moon they could reach, but nothing had prepared them for aliens making first contact. "Show me the message," Jake said. His assistant activated the wall screen. A shimmering 3-dimensional image appeared. It showed a figure that looked almost human, but with skin that shifted colors like an oil slick and eyes that were too large and too bright. "Greetings, people of Earth," the figure said in a voice that sounded like music. "I am Speaker Veltar of the Galactic Council. We extend an invitation to your species to join our great community of worlds." Jake leaned forward in his chair. This was it. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for centuries. "Your world has been observed for some time," the alien continued. "We find your species to be quite interesting. Your passionate nature and creative conflicts have caught our attention. We believe Earth could contribute to galactic civilization in its own unique way." The message continued with details about a meeting place and diplomatic protocols. But something in the alien's tone made Jake uncomfortable. The words were polite, but there was something else underneath, something that sounded almost like amusement. Meanwhile, on the moon base, Luna, defense platform, Lieutenant Amy Carter stared at her scanner displays with growing concern. Amy was 32 years old with red hair that she kept tied back in a tight military bun. She had been monitoring space around Earth for 3 years, and she knew every normal energy signature by heart. What she was seeing now was definitely not normal. "Computer, run a deep scan of the Jupiter system," she commanded. The results made her sit back in shock. Hidden among Jupiter's moons were massive structures that hadn't been there yesterday, or rather, they had been there but somehow invisible to human sensors until now. "My God," Amy whispered. "They've been watching us." The structures were clearly artificial. They were huge, the size of small cities, and they were positioned perfectly to observe Earth. Energy readings suggested they had been active for decades. Amy immediately called her commanding officer. "Colonel, we have a problem. We're not alone, and we haven't been alone for a very long time." Back on Earth, Dr. Peter Hayes worked late in his laboratory. Peter was a thin man with graying hair and thick glasses who had spent his life studying the possibility of alien life. Now, with actual alien technology to examine, he felt like a child on Christmas morning. The probe that had delivered the invitation had left behind small samples of its hull material. Under his microscope, Peter could see that the metal was unlike anything on Earth. It was made of elements that didn't exist in nature and arranged in patterns that human science couldn't explain. But what worried Peter most was what his analysis revealed about the aliens' attitude toward humanity. The probe's computer systems contained fragments of data, bits and pieces of alien conversations. Peter's translation software was primitive, but it was good enough to catch the general meaning. The aliens were talking about humans the way humans might talk about animals in a zoo. Words like amusing and primitive appeared over and over. There were references to entertainment value and behavioral studies. Peter realized with growing horror that humanity was not being invited to join galactic civilization as equals. They were being invited to be the galaxy's pets. In the depths of space aboard the alien ship, Ambassador Vexthul concluded his presentation to the Galactic Council. "The humans have accepted our invitation," he announced. "They are eager to meet us and learn their place in the galaxy. This should provide us with years of entertainment." The assembled aliens applauded, their various sounds of approval filling the chamber. None of them noticed the small human probe that had attached itself to their ship's hull during the meeting. None of them realized that Amy Carter's scanners were already tracking their location, and none of them suspected that Captain Jake Morrison was not nearly as naive as they believed. The galaxy's favorite comedy show was about to become something very different. 3 weeks after the first alien message, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of humanity's newest starship. The ship was called New Horizons, and it represented the best technology Earth could build. Jake wore his dress uniform, the one with all his medals, but he felt more like he was going to his own funeral than a historic meeting. "Captain, we're approaching the coordinates," said Lieutenant Amy Carter from her position at the tactical station. Amy had been promoted after her discovery of the alien observation posts. Now she served as Jake's tactical officer and his most trusted advisor. "Good work, Amy. What do our sensors show?" Amy studied her displays carefully. "The station is massive, sir. It's at least 10 times bigger than anything we've ever built. Energy readings are off the charts. And Captain, there are ships from at least 20 different species docked there." Jake nodded grimly. Earth was clearly the new kid on the block, and probably not a very welcome one. The space station called Harmony Point looked like a giant wheel spinning slowly in space. Its outer ring was covered with docking bays, observation decks, and what looked like shopping areas. Lights of every color flashed along its surface, creating patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. "Incoming message, Captain," reported Communications Officer Lisa Brooks. Lisa was a calm, professional woman who had served on 3 different Earth ships. "They're giving us docking instructions." "Put it on screen." The alien who appeared was unlike anything in Earth's movies. It had 4 arms, purple skin, and a head that was perfectly round. When it spoke, its mouth didn't move in sync with the words. "Welcome, humans of Earth. I am Portmaster Glicktar. You have been assigned Docking Bay 47B. Please follow the guidance, beacons, and prepare for customs inspection." The customs inspection turned out to be more like a medical examination. Alien doctors with too many eyes and not enough limbs poked and prodded the human crew. They took samples of hair, skin, and blood. They measured everything from height to brain activity. "Fascinating," one alien doctor muttered to another. "Their neural patterns are so chaotic. No wonder they fight so much. Jake gritted his teeth, but said nothing. Dr. Peter Hayes, who had joined the mission as science advisor, took careful notes on everything the aliens did and said. After the examination, a tall alien with green skin and yellow eyes approached the humans. Jake recognized him from the diplomatic messages as Ambassador Vexthul. "Welcome to Harmony Point, humans," Vexthul said, with what might have been a smile. "I trust your journey was not too difficult for such a primitive vessel." "Our ship performed perfectly, thank you," Jake replied politely. Of course, now let me show you to your quarters. We have prepared something very special for Earth's first diplomatic mission." The quarters turned out to be a nightmare. The rooms were surrounded by transparent walls that looked out into a busy corridor. Hundreds of aliens walked by every hour, stopping to point and stare at the humans inside. Some took pictures, others made sounds that were clearly laughter. "It's like we're animals in a zoo," Amy said quietly to Jake when they were alone. "That's exactly what we are," Jake replied. "The question is, what do we do about it?" The next morning, the humans attended their first diplomatic session. The meeting room was enormous, with representatives from dozens of alien species sitting in rows of seats that rose up toward the ceiling. At the center of the room was a small table with 4 chairs marked with Earth's symbol. Supreme Chancellor Kethvar of the Andromedan Collective called the meeting to order. He was a tall gray alien with large black eyes and a voice that sounded like grinding metal. "We are gathered today to welcome our newest potential members," Kethvar announced. "The humans of Earth have requested to join our galactic community." Laughter filled the room. Not polite diplomatic laughter, but the kind of laughter people make when they hear a good joke. "Before we discuss membership," Kethvar continued, "we must address the reality of the situation. Humans are a young species. They are violent, unpredictable, and technologically primitive. However, they are also highly entertaining." More laughter. Jake felt his face growing red, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Therefore," Kethvar said, "we propose a special status for Earth. You will become a protected world, a nature preserve where humans can continue their fascinating conflicts without interfering with galactic civilization." Ambassador Vexthul stood up. "The benefits to humanity are obvious. You will be protected from outside threats. You will receive enough technology to make your lives comfortable, and you will be free to continue your wars and politics for the entertainment of the galaxy." "Entertainment?" Dr. Hayes asked. "Oh yes," Vexthul replied happily. "Human conflicts are broadcast throughout the galaxy. Your elections, your wars, your social dramas. They are more popular than any fictional programming we have ever created." Amy Carter had heard enough. "You've been watching us like a television show? A very successful television show," another alien called out from the audience. "My personal favorite was your Cold War period. Such delicious tension. And your recent social media conflicts have been wonderful," added another. "The way you fight over such trivial matters is endlessly amusing." Jake stood up slowly. Every alien eye in the room focused on him. The laughter died away. "Let me understand this correctly," Jake said in a voice that was dangerously quiet. "You want to turn Earth into a reservation where humans can provide entertainment for the rest of the galaxy?" "Exactly," Kethvar said, pleased that the human was finally understanding. "You will have complete freedom to be yourselves, within the boundaries we set, of course." "Of course," Jake repeated. "And what if we refuse?" The room went silent. It was clear that the aliens had never considered this possibility. "Refuse?" Vexthul asked, sounding confused. "But why would you refuse? We are offering you protection, technology, and the chance to preserve your unique culture under your control," Amy said. "Well, yes. You are not ready for true independence. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when you have evolved beyond your current primitive state." Jake looked around the room at the hundreds of alien faces staring down at him. He thought about Amy's discovery of the observation posts. He thought about Dr. Hayes' analysis of the alien technology. And he thought about what the people of Earth would say when they learned the truth. "We need time to consider your generous offer," Jake said finally. Of course, Kethover replied. Take all the time you need. We know this is a big decision for such a young species. As the meeting ended and the aliens filed out, chattering excitedly about their new pets, Jake turned to his crew. Amy, I want you to scan everything on this station. Every weapon, every shield, every computer system, find their weaknesses. Yes, sir. Peter, keep listening to everything they say. I want to know exactly how they see us and what they're planning. Already on it, Captain. Lisa, send a coded message to Earth. Tell them what we've learned. And tell them to start preparing. Preparing for what, sir? Jake's smile was cold and hard. For the day when the galaxy stops laughing at us and starts taking us seriously. Outside their transparent quarters, aliens continued to gather and point at the humans. They had no idea that their favorite entertainment was about to become their biggest nightmare. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the corridors of Harmony Point with a pleasant smile on his face. He nodded politely to every alien he passed, and even stopped to pose for pictures with some of the more excited tourists. To anyone watching, he looked like a man who was honored to be there, but inside Jake was burning with anger. The human seems to be adapting well, Ambassador Vexthal said to his assistant as they watched Jake through the security monitors. Perhaps these creatures are more intelligent than we first thought. Not too intelligent, I hope, the assistant replied. That would ruin the entertainment value. What the aliens didn't know was that Jake's smile was carefully planned. Every friendly gesture, every polite conversation, every moment of apparent wonder was part of a larger strategy. While he played the role of the impressed primitive, his crew was working. Amy Carter had spent 3 days mapping every inch of the space station. She carried what looked like a simple camera, but it was actually scanning and recording everything. The aliens were so confident in their superiority that they didn't bother with serious security around the humans. Their weapons are impressive, Amy reported to Jake during one of their private moments, but they're completely automated. Everything runs on computer programs. There's no human creativity, no ability to adapt quickly to new situations. What about their shields? Jake asked. Same thing, they follow set patterns. Rotate every 6 minutes, recharge for 30 seconds, then rotate again. It's like they built everything according to some ancient manual and never bothered to update it. Dr. Peter Hayes had been even busier. The aliens loved showing off their technology to the primitive human scientist. They gave him tours of their laboratories, their libraries, and even their military museums. They treated him like a child being shown toys by adults. They're incredibly advanced, Peter told Jake, but they've been advanced for so long that they've stopped innovating. Everything they use is thousands of years old. They just keep copying the same designs over and over. What about their military capabilities? Huge ships, massive weapons, energy shields that could stop anything we currently have. But Jake, they haven't fought a real war in over 1,000 years. All their battles are just police actions against primitive species who give up quickly. While his crew gathered intelligence, Jake played his part perfectly. He attended cultural events, asked innocent questions, and acted amazed by everything he saw. The aliens ate it up. Tell me about Earth's military, Chancellor Kethovar asked during one of their dinners. I understand you were a soldier before, becoming a diplomat. Oh yes, Jake replied with an embarrassed laugh. We humans do love our little wars, though I suppose they must seem very primitive to you. Primitive, yes, but fascinating, Kethovar said. Your species' ability to find new ways to fight over nothing is truly remarkable. We have scholars who study human conflict as an art form. How flattering, Jake said, though his smile never reached his eyes. Back on Earth, Admiral Robert Chen was not smiling at all. He stood in the newly built war room deep beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by screens showing military preparations across the globe. The message from Jake's team had arrived 3 days ago, and Earth's response had been swift and secret. Status report, Chen commanded. All major powers are on board, reported General Kate Sullivan. The Chinese, Russians, Europeans, everyone. For the first time in history, every nation on Earth is working together. What about the colonies? Mars base is expanding weapons production. The asteroid miners are converting their equipment for military use. Even the moon bases are being turned into fortresses. Chen nodded. Humanity had less than 6 months to prepare for what might be the most important conflict in their history. But they had advantages the aliens didn't know about. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker worked day and night in his laboratory, studying the alien technology samples that Dr. Hayes had smuggled back to Earth. Steve was Earth's best engineer, and what he was discovering changed everything. The aliens are incredibly advanced, Steve reported to Admiral Chen via secure communication, but they're also incredibly lazy. Their technology does everything for them. They don't have backup systems, manual overrides, or emergency protocols. What does that mean for us? It means if we can disrupt their computers, their entire civilization falls apart. They've forgotten how to do anything without their machines. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, Earth's top military strategist, had spent weeks studying the intelligence from Harmony Point. Helen was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had planned some of humanity's most successful military operations. The aliens have made a critical mistake, she told the assembled military leaders. They think we're stupid, so they're not hiding anything from us. We know where their bases are, how their weapons work, and what their weaknesses are. What do you recommend? Admiral Chen asked. We give them exactly what they expect. We act like the primitive, violent humans they think we are. And while they're laughing at us, we prepare to show them what human violence really looks like. Back on Harmony Point, Jake received a coded message hidden in what looked like a routine supply delivery. The message was simple. Ready when you are. That evening, Jake attended another diplomatic dinner. The aliens were in high spirits discussing their plans for Earth's future as an entertainment preserve. We're thinking of installing cameras in your major cities, Ambassador Vex Thule explained excitedly. Imagine the audience for your next war. It will be the most watched event in galactic history. How wonderful, Jake replied. I'm sure my people will be honored. They should be. Very few species get this kind of attention. Most primitives are simply ignored until they destroy themselves. Jake's smile never wavered, but Amy Carter noticed his hands clenching under the table. The dinner continued with the aliens describing their plans in detail. They wanted to establish monitoring stations throughout Earth's solar system. They planned to limit human technology to prevent any chance of real space travel. They even discussed relocating troublesome human populations to prevent any organized resistance. Of course, we'll allow you to keep your governments and your military, Chancellor Kethvar said generously. Local conflicts are essential for good entertainment, but any attempt to develop interstellar capabilities will be stopped immediately. We understand completely, Jake replied. After all, we wouldn't want to upset the natural order of things. Exactly. You see, you are learning already. After dinner, Jake walked slowly back to his quarters, still smiling and nodding to every alien he passed. But when he reached his room and the privacy shields activated, his expression changed completely. Amy, how long until the next supply ship arrives? He asked. 2 days, Captain. Perfect. Send a message to Admiral Chen. Tell him it's time. What should I tell him exactly? Jake's smile returned, but now it was sharp and cold and dangerous. Tell him the galaxy is about to learn that humans don't make good pets. Tell him it's time to show these aliens what we do to anyone who tries to put us in a cage. Outside their quarters, alien tourists continued to point and laugh at the amusing humans. They had no idea that in 48 hours their comfortable, peaceful universe was going to change forever. The joke was about to end, and the punchline was going to be delivered at the end of a human weapon. The attack began at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time, across 12 different star systems simultaneously. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Defiant Dawn, as it dropped out of hyperspace near the Zephyrian homeworld. Around her, 50 Earth ships materialized from the darkness of space like ghosts becoming solid. All ships, this is Admiral Sullivan. She broadcast on an open channel that every alien in the system could hear. You have 10 minutes to surrender your orbital defenses. After that, we will remove them for you. On the planet below, emergency alarms began wailing in cities that had not heard such sounds for 1,000 years. The Zephyrian defense fleet, caught completely off guard, scrambled to respond to the impossible sight of primitive Earth ships in their home system. Impossible, breathed Fleet Commander Zixtal from his command ship. Humans don't have interstellar travel capability. Our reports clearly stated they were confined to their single star system. Sir, we're receiving similar reports from 11 other systems, his communications officer reported with panic in his voice. Human fleets have appeared at every major world simultaneously. Meanwhile, back at Harmony Point, Captain Jake Morrison's pleasant diplomatic smile had been replaced by something much more dangerous. He stood in the station's main control room, where Amy Carter and her assault team had taken control of all major systems in less than 20 minutes. How? Ambassador Vexthul demanded, his green scales turning a sickly yellow color. How did primitive humans infiltrate our most secure station? The same way we infiltrated your entire galaxy, Jake replied calmly. While you were busy laughing at us, we were busy learning about you. Amy Carter looked up from the control console she had been working on. All station defenses are down, Captain. Their automated systems didn't know how to respond to our attack patterns. Automated systems? Vexthul sputtered. But those systems are perfect. They have protected us for millennia. Against other aliens who fight the same way you do, Jake explained. We don't fight fair. We don't follow your rules. We adapt and improvise and do whatever it takes to win. Dr. Peter Hayes entered the control room carrying a datapad filled with information he had downloaded from the station's computers. Captain, you need to see this. The aliens have been broadcasting our diplomatic mission live across the galaxy. Half the civilized universe is watching right now. Jake's expression grew even more serious. Perfect. Amy, patch me into their broadcast network. Within moments, Jake's image was being transmitted to billions of aliens across dozens of worlds. He stood straight and proud in his Earth military uniform, no longer pretending to be the humble primitive seeking guidance. People of the galaxy, Jake began, his voice carrying to every inhabited system. My name is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. For the past month, you have been watching us as entertainment. You thought we were primitive animals performing for your amusement. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Admiral Sullivan's fleet had disabled the orbital defense platforms without firing a single shot. Her ships moved in patterns that the alien computers couldn't predict or counter, striking precisely where the automated defenses were weakest. Sir, they're not following any known military doctrine, reported the confused Zephyrian tactical officer. Their ships move like they're dancing instead of fighting. It's not dancing, Fleet Commander Zixtal said grimly as he watched another defense platform go dark. It's chaos, pure creative chaos. Our systems can't calculate responses to something that has no pattern. Jake's broadcast continued from Harmony Point. You made a mistake when you decided to treat us like pets. You see, humans have a long history of dealing with bullies, and we've learned that the best way to handle someone who thinks they're better than you is to prove them wrong. On 12 different worlds, human fleets were doing exactly that. Ships disguised as simple cargo vessels revealed hidden weapons and advanced technology that surpassed anything the aliens had seen in centuries. Human fighters moved through alien formations like sharks through schools of fish. But the humans weren't alone. Throughout the galaxy, other species that had been ignored or dismissed by the major powers began to join the fight. The Corvan miners, tired of being treated as slaves, turned their mining equipment into weapons. The Deltarian traders who had been excluded from galactic commerce provided ships and supplies to the human cause. Colonel Steve Parker's voice came over Jake's communication system from Earth. Captain, Phase 2 is ready to implement. Do it, Jake ordered. Across the galaxy, human computer viruses that had been quietly spreading through alien networks for weeks suddenly activated. The same automated systems that the aliens relied on for everything began turning against them. Defense grids shut down. Communication networks went silent. Even basic life support systems started failing on military installations. This is impossible, Chancellor Kethvar declared from his fortress world at the edge of the galaxy. Humans are primitive. They should not possess such capabilities. His aide, a nervous creature with too many eyes, brought him the latest reports. Sir, our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been far more advanced than we realized. They've been hiding their true capabilities while studying ours. How advanced? Sir, their computer technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their military tactics are unlike anything we've ever encountered. And sir, they've been preparing for this war since the day we made contact. Back on Harmony Point, Ambassador Vex Thule watched in horror as the station's systems continued to fall under human control. But we offered you peace. We offered you protection. Why are you doing this? Jake turned to face the alien who had treated humanity like a joke for so long. Because you made one critical error in your calculations about humans. What error? You forgot that we're the species that fought our way to the top of our planet's food chain. We're the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and wars that should have destroyed us. We're the species that looked at the impossible and decided to do it anyway. Amy Carter interrupted from her position at the controls. Captain, we're receiving surrender requests from 6 different star systems. The Andromedan Collective is asking for terms. Tell them we'll discuss terms when every human who was being held for entertainment is released, Jake replied. And when every species that's been oppressed by the galactic powers is given equal representation. Dr. Hayes looked up from his data analysis. Jake, the broadcast ratings are incredible. This is the most watched event in galactic history. Every species in known space is seeing this. Good, Jake said firmly. Let them see what happens when you underestimate humanity. Let them see what humans do when someone tries to put us in a cage. The war that was supposed to be a quick police action against primitive humans had become a galaxy-wide revolution. On world after world, the established order was crumbling as oppressed species rose up, inspired by humanity's bold example. Admiral Sullivan's fleet had completely secured the Zephyrian system and was already moving toward their next target. Her ships had not lost a single vessel, while the alien forces were in complete disarray. All human fleets, this is Admiral Sullivan, she broadcast to her scattered forces. Execute final phase. It's time to end this. Jake smiled as he listened to the report. It was not the polite diplomatic smile he had worn for weeks. It was the smile of a human who had just reminded the galaxy why his species had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. Ambassador Vexathul, Jake said to the trembling alien, I believe you wanted to discuss entertainment value. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Because this is what human entertainment looks like when we're the ones writing the script. Outside Harmony Point, the galaxy watched and waited to see what these dangerous, unpredictable humans would do next. 6 months after the day the galaxy stopped laughing, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Great Assembly Hall of New Geneva Station, humanity's first diplomatic center built in neutral space. Around him sat representatives from over 200 species, all waiting to sign the new Galactic Compact. The war that was supposed to last years had ended in weeks. The revolution that started with humanity's refusal to be entertainment had spread to every corner of known space. Old empires had fallen, and new alliances had risen from their ashes. Ambassador Vex Thule, his once proud green scales now dull with defeat, approached Jake's table. The former Zephyrian diplomat now served as a cultural attaché, one of many former enemies who had asked to work with humanity rather than against it. Captain Morrison, Vex Thule said quietly, I owe you an apology. Jake looked up from the documents he was reviewing. For what? For thinking you were primitive, for treating your species like animals, for not understanding what humans truly are. And what are we? Jake asked. Vexthul was quiet for a long moment. You are what we used to be before we became comfortable, before we stopped growing, before we forgot that intelligence without courage is worthless. Across the galaxy, the changes were visible everywhere. On the former fortress world of Centauri Prime, the last battle of the war had been fought just 3 months earlier. Admiral, Kate Sullivan had led the final assault against the old Galactic Council's remaining forces. The battle itself had lasted less than 6 hours. The alien defenders, despite having superior numbers and stronger weapons, had been unable to adapt to human tactics. Their rigid military doctrines had crumbled against humanity's creative chaos. They fought like they were following a rulebook, Admiral Sullivan had reported to Earth Command. Every move was predictable. Every strategy was something their computers had calculated 1,000 times before. They couldn't handle anything new. Captain Amy Carter, now promoted to admiral, commanded the new galactic peacekeeping force from her flagship, the Rising Dawn. The fleet was made up of ships from dozens of species, all united under human leadership, not because humanity demanded it, but because they had asked for it. The Corvin rebellion in the Outer Rim has been resolved peacefully, Amy reported to Jake via secure communication. The mining corporations have agreed to fair labor contracts and equal representation. What about the Deltarian trade dispute? Settled. Yesterday. The major trade routes are now open to all species, not just the traditional powers. Commerce is already increasing by 30%. Dr. Peter Hayes had perhaps the biggest job of all. As the new director of Galactic Scientific Cooperation, he was tasked with sharing human innovation with species that had forgotten how to innovate. His laboratories on Earth were now training centers where alien scientists came to remember what discovery felt like. The Andromedan research team made a breakthrough yesterday, Peter told Jake during one of their regular meetings. They've developed a new type of energy cell based on human battery technology. It's more efficient than anything they've built in 1,000 years. How are they handling the change? Better than expected. Once they got over their pride, they became genuinely excited about learning again. It turns out that being comfortable for too long had made them miserable, even if they didn't realize it. The signing ceremony for the Galactic Compact was broadcast to every inhabited world. Unlike the old broadcasts that had treated humanity as entertainment, this one was watched with respect and hope. Jake stood before the assembly and began to speak. 6 months ago, you knew us as a primitive species good only for amusement. You thought we were violent, chaotic, and unpredictable. Murmurs of agreement and embarrassment rippled through the crowd. You were right, Jake continued, causing surprised looks throughout the hall. We are violent when we need to be. We are chaotic when order fails us. And we are absolutely unpredictable when someone tries to control us. He paused, looking out at the hundreds of alien faces watching him. But you missed the most important thing about humans. We are these things not because we're primitive, but because we never forgot that sometimes the old ways don't work. Sometimes you have to break the rules to make things better. Sometimes you have to fight to protect the things you love. Chancellor Kethvar, the former leader of the Andromedan Collective, stood to speak. He had lost much of his former arrogance and spoke with genuine humility. The humans have taught us something we had forgotten, he said. They reminded us that intelligence without wisdom is dangerous. That power without purpose is meaningless. That comfort without challenge leads to death. The new Galactic Compact was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of a few powerful species ruling over many weak ones, it established equal representation for all. Instead of ancient laws that never changed, it created systems that could adapt and grow. Instead of punishing different ways of thinking, it celebrated them. Dr. Helen Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's chief negotiator, had spent months crafting the document. The key, she explained to Jake, was making sure that no species could ever again do to others what was done to us. As the ceremony concluded and the various species began to sign the compact, Jake received a private message from Admiral Chen back on Earth. Jake, you need to see the latest entertainment ratings from across the galaxy. Entertainment ratings? The most popular shows now are human documentaries about scientific innovation, human historical dramas about overcoming impossible odds, and human educational programs about military strategy. The galaxy isn't laughing at us anymore. They're learning from us. Jake smiled. It was a real smile this time, not the diplomatic mask he had worn for so long. Later that evening, as the celebrations continued around New Geneva Station, Jake stood, alone on an observation deck looking out at the stars. Amy Carter joined him carrying 2 cups of Earth coffee, which had become surprisingly popular among alien species. So what happens now? Amy asked. Now we do what humans have always done, Jake replied. We explore, we discover, we help others do the same. And if anyone tries to put us back in a cage, we remind them why that's a bad idea. And if they don't listen? Jake's smile turned slightly dangerous. Then we show them that the galaxy's former Punchline has become its protector. And that's a joke nobody wants to be on the wrong side of. Throughout the galaxy, on worlds that had once broadcast human conflicts for entertainment, new programs were being created. Shows about human art, human science, human philosophy. The species that had once been considered primitive had become the teachers of the galaxy. The joke was over. The lesson had begun, and humanity was finally writing its own punchline.